Hello, this is Tom, aka Gedeon, here for the Star Frontiers Gamer with another Fanzine Friday. This would be number 33, and we are reviewing Frontier Explorer number 8 from 2014. So let's get right to it with a share screen. And Frontier Explorer number 8, 2014. And we've got on the cover, the quote is, we have this glorious picture of this habitat, floating city, asteroid thing. I really don't know what it is. Let's shrink it. See, but I mean, it was a great image. The quote is continuing to push back the frontier, somehow appropriate for Star Frontiers and a Star Frontiers fan magazine. The full cover quote is, "Man has always gone where he has been able to go. It's that simple. He will continue pushing back his frontier, no matter how far it may carry him from his homeland," by Michael Collins. The cover art is Orbital Hive, updated part 2, by Ryan Malone, goes by J.R. Malone on DeviantArt. He has been a great patron of the Frontier and has graciously donated to us numerous pieces of artwork to use in the magazine. So I'm a fan of Ryan Malone's work. Great guy. Let me see. The editors were Tom Stevens, myself, William Douglas, and Eric Windsor. And AZ Gamer was our comics guy. He did as well as some of the interior art. And the first article is a survey of Yazarian literature. Now, this is written as if it is the class notes from taking a college class. So I did class objectives: to gain a broad understanding of Yazarian literature from ancient to modern times. 2, be able to recognize and describe several broad genres of Yazarian literature. 3, be able to discuss and critique works of one major Yazarian author. So you have lecture notes, and then we talk about early clan literature. I mean, really ancient stuff. And then the epoch of the clan wars, the industrial epoch, and then pre-Exodus poetry. Now, let me just pause here. Building off of fan canon, that the Yazarians had a star exodus, and it was because a wandering brown dwarf was entering their system. They had decades to prepare for this, and the more they studied it, the more they realized this brown dwarf is going to disrupt the orbit of our planet Yazira. So that led to the star exodus. I hypothesized with the impending Armageddon that you would get this genre of poetry that would intersect with the practice of singing a song to memorialize a dead warrior. That you got this death, what did we call it here? Death song poetry. It is what evolved, and it was to sing about the clan, because they began to wrestle with this idea that our clan may not live forever. And so you had this whole genre called death song poetry. And so it evolved from fan canon of the Star Exodus and other things that have been written about by fans, myself and other people. And then after the Exodus, you have a more hopeful period. You have the post-Exodus literature. This is Yazarian literature that has begun to be written within the frontier setting itself, now that they have colonized the frontier. Then we get into adventure hooks here. The Pringular Prize will be awarded. Callistra's Verses. Let me focus on that one. This is Callistra is like the Yazarian equivalent of Satan. And this is from some other writings that I've done. And so I envisioned a Yazarian Salman Rushdie, how do you pronounce his name? Rushdie, who has written an expose of the Family of One, and the Family of One's inquisitors, the religious secret police, want him for questioning back on Hence. Uh, the player characters could have been hired to snatch and smuggle him back to Hence, or to protect him from the Inquisitors. So there are two plot hooks in one idea. The Inquisitors want him, player character, depending on your group, how you want to run that. If the PCs, so they're either there to smuggle him or to protect him from the Inquisitors. If the PCs are involved in kidnapping, Starlaw and Space Fleet may be potential antagonists. And then alternately, the PCs might be tasked with confirming key evidence in the expose or getting rid of that evidence. So again, two sides to that coin as well for those plot hooks. And Salman, now I wrote this back in 2014, and of course Salman Rushdie was again back in the news this year because he was actually attacked on stage. So I just thought that was an interesting, just riffing off of modern things, gave me ideas for Yazurian literature, which then gave me ideas for plot hooks. I am Marcus Twain. This is somebody writing under a pseudonym, kind of like Mark Twain is a pseudonym. And a literary hoax. And then there's this little sidebar. This is based off of this first plot hook. The Prengular Prize will be awarded. Well, what is the Prengular Prize? It's the Nobel Peace Prize. It's the frontier version of the Nobel Peace Prize. And so I read a little history here, and I talked about some significant award winners, the three of them down here at the bottom. Like, for instance, 21Z for developing the multi-species quick heal compound known as BioCort. Just give him a little shot of BioCort, rub some dirt on it, he'd be all right. The BioCort's the universal cure-all in the med kit. And I just thought that would deserve a Nobel Peace Prize or a Prengular Prize. So this was not so much an adventure here, but it's just the plot hooks. But it builds off this idea of exploring Yazurian literature. And it's not just for the game master, because you might, for instance, if you're doing a Yazurian character, you might specify in the background of your character, just for something interesting, that they're into that death song poetry. They're a great fan of, and they collect collections of death song poetry. And what I would do under those circumstances is I'd go looking for some really dark Japanese haikus, because they're like only 5 lines, and they don't even have to sound good. Because you could say something's lost in translation from the Yazurian language to Pangal. I pretend English is Pangal in game. So I'll be like, that such and such was the Yazurian word for saber, and saber is now the Pangal translation. So that's what I do. And so you could have some Japanese haikus, and the rules for writing a Japanese haiku are real simple. It's only like 4 or 5 lines, so they're very easy to write. I actually ran, when I worked in a nursing home in the activities department, I actually ran a poetry workshop for the residents in the nursing home, and we wrote haikus. I gave examples, I talked about the rules, and I just, and they came up with their own ideas, and sometimes I helped a little bit, but this was for the higher functioning residents. And so we wrote a whole slew of Japanese haikus, and then because being in the activities department, I was responsible for the newsletter. I totally used all their haikus in the newsletters for like 3 or 4 months, and so that just gave me content for the magazine, for the newsletters. So haikus are easy to write, and they don't even have to sound good, because you could just be like, blame that on it's lost in translation. And so that could work for your character. You could write a few really dark, death sounding, haikus, and explore that as your character in game. And so I think that would be potentially a really interesting thing to do with the character. So not all this material is for the game master. Next up, we have Star Frontiers Characters Without Number. This is a rules conversion for using Stars Without Number, which is a D20 system if you're interested in that. It's basically BX D&D converted to a sci-fi setting. and it's really an elegant rule set. And when you buy a hard copy of the book, and you get that in your hands as a game master, you're gonna be like, wow, this thing's got so much support material for me. It's you're gonna love it. I love Stars Without Number. I have not actually played Star Frontiers in Stars Without Number. I just not had that opportunity. It was the kind of thing I wanted to have at the kitchen table, not virtually online. But so this is a conversion. I discuss the major things for doing Star Frontiers characters, and there's a few things, you know, about rolling ability scores, choosing your species, but then getting into some of these techs here. For instance, Maltech in Stars Without Number. The Stars Without Number setting is really quite a bit different from Star Frontiers, although it's a really elegant sci-fi rule set. So this Maltech, I discuss what Maltech would be in Star Frontiers. You know, it would be, Sathar or click technology, and it might be some illegal research in corporate labs based off of Sathar or click technology. We talk about the Sci-Tech. I said, look, because there's the potential to use the psychic class in Stars Without Number, don't change Sci-Tech's skill at all. And then you have post-tech and pre-tech. And this is based off of technology and where it comes in the timeline. Like pre-tech stuff is really marvelous, magical kind of tech. And I discuss the fact that these things don't exist so much because it's based off of an event in Stars Without Numbers timeline, very generic timeline. So I recommend just getting rid of post-tech and pre-tech and going with the classic Star Frontiers technical skills of technician, computers, and robotics. But then I suggest a refinement where you could just delete robotics and have technicians. And so the technician, he's going to repair the hover car, but he can also repair the robot, because turning a wrench is turning a wrench. Replacing a part is replacing a part. And that's how I see that. And then you'd have computers, which is about programming computers, but also programming robots. So that was the refinement I suggested within here. And then we suggest some backgrounds based off of the Star Frontier setting. And then some final thoughts. So this is just a basic how you would convert Star Frontiers into the Stars Without Number rule set. And there's another article. Did we cover it? I think we covered it. Was the Sathar Monsters Without Number. That was in the previous issue, wasn't it? And I think I eventually tackled a Equipment Without Number, maybe. What I never got around to was fully converting the spaceship skill rules. And I just thought, you know what? How about I just ignore Star Frontiers Nighthawks, and we'll just use Stars Without Number spaceship rules, because they're very elegant. They're much easier to use, I feel, than the Star Frontiers Nighthawks. So, quick article for using Stars Without Number. Next up was UPF Fast Combat Support Ships, the UPF Supply and Fast Combat Support Ships. So just a write-up on these class of ships, and you get two of them here, no deck plan. You get the UPF Supply Class Fast Combat Support Ship. It's a hull size 4. It's kind of like a privateer for the for Space Fleet, for the logistics chain that could stand into danger a little bit, support the fleet. They're not frontline units, but if they get shot at by a Sathar, it's not that bad. And then you get a hull size 8 UPF Protector class supply ship. So these are armed ships. They have a heavier crew than you would expect. No deck plan, but certainly you're getting the stats here for using these, which is interesting because of the Nighthawks scenario that's coming in this issue. But first, we have new vehicles, the Snowcats. These were just tracked snow vehicles. I did up, 3 grades of the Snow Lynx, Snow Puma, Snow Lion, and basically the Snow Lynx is a 2-man job. And, your Snow Puma is like your car sized, 6 passengers. And then your Snow Lion is your expedition, 6 to 12 people could ride in this big, the big thing. The next up was this material. It's unknown who wrote this originally. We found this. It's called Let's Eat, and discusses the Synthetics Corporation and their orientation manual. Discusses cuisine for Drolocytes, humans, and Versk and Yazarians. It gives some example of foods. These golly berries. We found this mutant strawberry image online. We just said, there we go. There's a golly berry. I don't know if that's what the original author intended, but that's what we did when we were looking for illustrations for this stuff. And so just a quick fluff article on Frontier Foods. Then new equipment, land fleet surplus. I was working on some material for my Bounty on Death adventure, and I wanted the player characters to, they're going to need to get some cheap equipment, so they're going by the Army surplus, the military surplus store. And so I just said, should stat up some typical stuff. So I've done the web belt, the canteen, the ammo pouches, surplus skyne suits, surplus weapons are discussed, the trenching tool. And then I created up some battlefield bracers. Now, the battlefield bracer, First Sathar War era, is it's metal and plastic, and it basically has an integral chronocom, compass, toxi rad gauge, and flashlight. And the flashlight shines over you wear the bracer on your wrist. It shines over the back of your hand, so you can just use the flashlight that way. And I discuss some of the field expedient modifications that are done. For instance, the toxi rad gauge just has idiot lights that shine that tell you, oh, you're, we're detecting poison, we're detecting radiation. And a light shining gives you away in combat. So one of the classic field modifications done by men in combat is to be like, by any of the Core 4 in combat, is to disable those lights so that, we don't want our position to give away, because enemy fire is more lethal than a little bit of radiation. So, and then I did up a battlefield bracer that is actually a body comp. It's hardwired body comp. You can't change the project modules in it. So therefore you pay less for it, because it's it's just not that flexible and it can't be modified. So they tend to be a little cheaper. So this is a more entry level body comp, a little cheaper body comp that you could introduce for player characters to use. And it's got a bunch of the mapping stuff in it, and it pairs with a helmet, and you've got a microphone, earpiece, and a little eye monocle. And so that was a little bit of an Army surplus thing that I actually knew, something new that I didn't just go to the Army Navy store. It's called the Army Barracks in Saugus, Mass. And just like, all right, e-tool, canteen, let me stat these up. These were like legit new equipment. But it's only one page, so it's quick and easy. And then we have a new comic, Titan Rising, $22.99, episode 1, The Advisor. This is by Scott Mulder, who does the comic on the back, The Grimm's Guide to Intergalactic Conquest. So he started a new comic. I'll let you read that. Then next up, we had hazardous settings. I've been doing these hazardous settings. I think my first was Don't Go Into the Water. This one is about volcanoes. And all different types of volcanic effects are discussed in here, and how that might impact the game. Some things are, like a vent fisher, a fisher vent, setting up curtains of fire. That would be like a blocking terrain feature. That could hinder movement. Whereas a shield volcano with just advancing lava is something you got to flee from. And so all of these different things are talked about. One of the most interesting things here is, where are you? The pumice raft. I love this idea of the pumice raft. The pumice raft forms from volcanic activity in the ocean, and it will float. So it's a rock that floats because it's very porous. And so discuss that and its potential. Maybe the player character's air conveyance went down from all the ash in the air has trashed its engines, and it's gone down in the water. Player characters would be able to climb on the pumice raft for survival. So, and then I actually document some historic catastrophic eruptions on Earth and how many people died, in those events. And then did some adventure scenes like Save the Orphans. Fairly obvious. Needy non-player characters are threatened by the imminent volcanic eruption. Can the player characters get them to safety in time? Mystery of the Ice Ship. This is based off of the cryovolcano, which is something that happens on some of the moons out around our gas giants. You can Google that in Wikipedia and read up on that. It's an absolute fascinating phenomenon, and for thoroughness, I included the cryovolcano here. But imagine a ship that lands on one of these moons that has a cryovolcano that's constantly spewing, water, a water geyser that freezes, and all this, descends on that ship. And now you've got a ship that's become encased in ice and snow. To me, that's an interesting idea. You discover the ship, you got to cut through the ice, you got to cut into the ship. What are the mysteries of the ship? To me, that's an interesting adventure hook. A hot time in the alien ruins. Steadily advancing lava flows from a shield volcano or a cinder cone threaten an ancient set of alien ruins, but the ruins hold the promise of great treasure. Can the player characters locate the treasure and escape before the lava arrives? For added complication, include fissure vents producing fountains of fire. So that's a different, interesting adventure hook involving volcanoes. And then grounded by the government. The local government authorities have effectively impounded the player character's starship soon after they land. Local scientists are predicting a major eruption, and the government wants to use the player character's vessel to save the heads of the government. Can the player characters discover the truth and escape before volcano Mageddon? And Geddon here is not for Gedeon, it's for Armageddon, but Volcano Mageddon is what I was trying to say with that. So I like, different wrinkles to the setting, different wrinkles to the adventure by throwing in a hazardous environment. Next up is Scads and Scads of Scads. It is another Ecology of article written by Eric Windsor. We had some great artwork by Taisho on DeviantArt. And so he wrote some fiction here. You have Dwayne's Aquarium Lab became infected, Dwayne's battle with the Scads, so on and so forth, and some GM notes and stats for this creature. Next up was the Bokar. Now, the Bokar needs some explanation here. They look like space goblins. You can see my little Leonardo da Vinci, the style picture of the Bokar that I've done. And basically, this goblin picture up here, I went to Hassle-Free Minis, which are out of Great Britain, and they had some space goblins, that miniatures. And so I just took the photographs of them and then redrew them, and, putting all three different ones together as a group for that goblin illustration up there. And I just thought, this is great, because if you want to use the Bokar, you'll be able to go to Hassle-Free and purchase the minis to go with them. But I just went there and I had to crawl through their whole website, and I could not find them. They're actually, it looks like they're redoing the website, and a lot of their Space Dwarves listings are not up. So I don't know what's going on, but it looks like they've completely redone the website, and there's several things that I expected to find there missing. So maybe it's one of those things. Check back in the future, and then they'll, they're just in a rearranging phase. This was a collaborative species, and it's kind of a mix. It's kind of a fusion between the Ferengi of Star Trek and goblins, space goblins. And but it's the Ferengi without the rules of acquisition. These guys are seriously amoral. In fact, they talk in here about how they will completely ignore a contract. You can sign a contract with them, they'll follow it until they don't want to. And we did not adopt the Star Trek lore of Ferengi women have to go naked, and we did a different wrinkle with it. The females in this society tend to have more of the power to control the overall society. But you get these Bokar guilds, which are usually centered on a ship, and there's two classes of Bokar within the ship. They have different jobs, and then they have a chattel class, and these are slaves that they have just taken. Rarely they will actually be Bokar, but it'll be a Bokar who's under a criminal. They're being punished, so they've been reduced. Doesn't usually happen. So it's mostly other species that have come into their, they've been sold to them by pirates. They have no morals. They're very amoral. Amongst themselves, they have rules and regulations, but dealing with anybody else, they're very, very amoral. So these are not a player character species. These are very much a foil, a problem. And then, so they have some special abilities here. And again, this was a collaborative effort with other people in the fan community working with me. I did the write-up, so I got the writing credit. But and then you have some Star Law preliminary investigation. These are just some facts and details that Star Law or other investigators have learned about the Bokar. It was easier to present them as just a bunch of bullet points than to try to gas bag and write for another page. And then supply run. Those fast UPF combat vessels, here you go. Here is a Nighthawk scenario involving those and a trio of Sathar ships, 2 destroyers and a frigate. So one page supply run Nighthawk scenario for you. And then this was a fun article. This is, I was in a Home Depot, and it was Time or Newsweek. They were talking about the wonders of the natural world, and then the wonders, the 7 wonders of the world and the modern wonders. And I just thought, well, what are the wonders of the frontier? And now many of these things actually come from canon. Like the first list here is the natural wonders of the frontier. And the obvious top of the list is the Ebony Eyes twin black hole system with its optical illusions that it causes within a certain range of the black holes. Mount Spire, that's a natural wonder. It's on Losend, and it is the tallest mountain in the frontier. It actually reaches into space. So that's a wonder. The Rift Valleys of Star Mist, described in the Sundown on Star Mist module, those are a natural wonder. The Rings of Turladrom, that is canon. The little footnote on Turladrom in the Alpha Dawn rules specifies that the planet has rings and you can see them from the ground. Now, I discussed this with an astronomer, and he was like, yeah, you probably wouldn't see them. So canon says you do, so we got to explain that. So, we just try to talk it up that they're really densely packed. They're shepherd moons that are holding their shape to explain why they're still there. you got to have the shepherd moons, their gravity interacting with the gravity of the planet helps keep the rings in the discrete shape. The fire fountains of Laco. This is an invention of mine, and I just thought you got to have a fire geyser that it's just like Old Faithful in Yosemite, and it's based off of the gas vents that allow gas to hit the air in the burning lands on Volturnus, described in the Crash on Volturnus module. And so these phosphine gas releases burst into flame when they come into contact with air. And so the burning lands and their light show and flames is a natural wonder, but the fire fountains on Laco are even more dramatic. They're more of a Yosemite Old Faithful type of geyser. And so that would qualify as a natural wonder. The next we get the fungal forest of Osak, and this was kind of the evolution, this idea of a fungal forest, but you also kind of, we grabbed the bioluminescence idea of Avatar, and so think Avatar, but it's a fungal forest and it's on Osak, the diamond planet of Tiamat. Now that name looks like Tiamat, and that was intentional. And I was reading up on the diamond planet that astronomy has been, they've detected some of these exoplanets, and they're like, we think that would be a planet that would just be all diamond. And these are what the conditions would be. And so I just thought that is just mad cool from the real world. We got to have that in the frontier. So we wrote it into the frontier. The Formad cluster, which is on some of the maps out there, is a trio of binary star systems, 3 of them. And I just thought, let's specify that they are all 1 light year distance from each other. This is just really odd. And so, it looks like, how did this happen just naturally? We don't know. It's a wonder. So it's considered wondrous. And then the ice volcanoes of the moon Gaia. I just love the idea of a cryovolcano. And so decided we got to write that into the setting as well. And then next up we had, and again, this was a collaborative effort, the Constructed Wonders of the Frontier. And this description of the Tetrarch pyramids is not one that I favor, but I included it, even though I prefer something a little different. The Ark of Yazira, that's based out of a lot of fan canon. Prengular Station, that space station over Gran Quivera, 6 rings strong. It's a class 6. It's one of the biggest on the frontier. It might as well be a wonder of frontier engineering and construction. The Forest of Yazira, the settlers of Hargut, mining settlement, carved a massive cliff face to resemble the lost forest of the Yazirian homeworld. This monumental work of art is essentially a mural made in stone, representing an idealized vision of the pre-Yazirian forest city. The monument is 6 kilometers squared, and it's visited by an estimated 3 million visitors a year because it's grand. The submerged Saurian city of Losen. The Saurians were introduced in the Dragon magazine, and they like the water. So I just thought, well, we got to have an underwater city, So first submerged dome city built on the frontier was built by the Saurians on Losend. And I thought that would be an interesting thing. The Grand Opera House of Osak, because of the musical capabilities and the linguistic capabilities of the Osakar's larynx and their ability to formulate any sound that they hear and actually have speech that other sapient species cannot replicate, would mean that they're going to have, if anybody's going to have a grand opera house, it's going to be the Osakar. So we might as well have the Grand Opera House of Osak. be a site that you would go see on the planet Osak in the rim quadrant. The space elevator of Fair. The planet Fair has only 5 islands, very limited real estate. It is controlled by the Capellan Free Merchants, and so you've got so much limited space. What's going to go on with your space industry? I think that if anybody was going to build a space elevator, it would be the Capellan Free Merchants, because you would not have to have a full-on starport that would eat up a lot of land, a lot of real estate, and so this would allow them to reduce the amount of real estate that they had. And so and a space elevator certainly is going to qualify as an engineering wonder. So there should be one somewhere in the frontier. Question is where. Let's put it on Fair in the Capella system. The City of Maze. City of Maze on Monitor. Just the name itself kind of suggests this is a big city. Part of the description of heavy population worlds is that some of them have maxi cities which cover whole continents. We get that description in the rules, but where are these cities? Well, I propose that the City of Maze and the City of Port Lauren be 2 maxi cities in the setting. And the capital of Minotaur is classified as the very first mega city in the frontier. It essentially covers most of the continent. Because any city called the City of Maze just sounds like this monstrosity. So we went with that. The ancient Drolosite globe ship. That was something created by me. And then the Click tank on Star Mist. Such a huge piece of engineering. It qualifies as a wonder in the frontier. Now, just like the 7 wonders of the ancient world, several of them are lost. The Colossus of Rhodes, the Great Lighthouse. Many of these wonders are lost. So some of these wonders, the Click tank, if you've played out Sundown on Star Mist, the Click tank has been destroyed. So that wonder is lost, but it was a major wonder, and presumably there's holographic film of it. So next up, Boneyard Station. Now, Boneyard Station was originally created by Richard Rowe's Shadow Shack, but here Eric Windsor's writing about it. It's a little piece of fiction with his Alex Stone, reporting. And so you get an Alex Stone story here where they visited Boneyard Station, and so it's a nice piece of fiction. It'll give you plot hooks, that sort of thing. Red Shift from White Light. This is another of the Love and Atomic Rockets stories by Edwin Cintron, following his character, and I love these stories that he's written with these characters, and so we're not going to do a spoiler on that. And then we get to Grimm's Guide to Intergalactic Conquest, lesson number 8: discretion. Discretion's always important. So there we have Frontier Explorer number 8, and another fun, a lot of plot hooks, a lot of material in here for plot hooks. Some new ships, but no deck plans, but Nighthawk's scenario to try those ships out with, and some great fiction, great frontier fiction for your reading pleasure. So this is Tom, aka Jetty, signing out for the Frontier Explorer, for the Star Frontiers Gamer. Thanks for watching the video. Thanks to my subscribers. You guys are great. And if you have not subscribed, please consider hitting the like, subscribe, and bell icon. Help us build a channel. And until then, I will see you in the frontier.